The hit comes from the blind side. Not loud, not cinematic, just heavy. Joe Montana never sees it. One moment he's stepping into the pocket, eyes downfield, shoulders relaxed. The next, a helmet crashes into his ribs, and the air leaves his lungs all at once. He goes down hard. The ball skids away. Whistles scream. Bodies pile up and untangle. And then something strange happens. Joe Montana doesn't get up. The clock keeps running. Players glance at the scoreboard. Coaches shout. The crowd reacts in confused waves. Half groan, half panic. This isn't the moment for drama. This isn't the moment to lie down. But Montana stays on the turf, on his back. Helmet still on, hands resting on his chest as if he's counting breaths. A lineman bends over him. Joe? No answer. Another teammate kneels. You good? Still nothing. The defense backs away slowly, already celebrating the hit. One defender claps, nodding toward the sideline. They think they've done enough. They think the game just tilted. On the sideline, coaches are screaming for urgency. Trainers start moving. A timeout signal flashes from someone near the bench. Montana hears none of it. He's staring straight up at the stadium lights, blinking slowly, deliberately. He's not hurt. He's thinking, because the hit told him something. The defender didn't wrap, didn't hesitate, didn't worry about the pass. They sold out, which means the defense believes the moment belongs to them now. Montana lets the clock bleed. Night 17. Now the panic spreads. A referee steps closer. Quarterback, you okay? Montana turns his head slightly, just enough. He nods once, still doesn't get up. The crowd noise changes. This isn't excitement anymore. It's anxiety. Everyone understands the stakes. If Montana stays down too long, the offense loses control. The defense gets organized. The moment disappears. But Montana knows exactly how much time he needs. The trainer reaches him. Joe, you want us? Montana exhales, slow and steady. I'm fine. He waits one more second. Then he rolls to his side and pushes himself up. Not rushed, not dramatic. He gets to one knee, then to his feet. The defense reacts instantly, shouting, pointing, scrambling back into position. They didn't expect this. They expected urgency, chaos, a mistake. Instead, they get calm. Montana jogs to the huddle like nothing happened. No limp, no anger, no explanation. Inside the huddle, everyone is talking at once. They clock it, timeout, spike it. Montana raises one hand. Silence. He looks at their faces, wide eyes, tight jaws, fear creeping in from the edges. He shakes his head. No timeout, he says. The words land heavy. Someone opens their mouth to argue. Montana cuts them off gently. Listen. He leans in. They think that hit ended it. A pause. It didn't. The huddle tightens. Montana gives the play. It's not flashy, not desperate. It's precise. They break. The defense lines up fast now. Adrenaline still buzzing from the hit. They're aggressive, overconfident, still chasing the moment they think they already won. Montana steps under center. He adjusts his gloves. The clock ticks. 0:11. He scans the defense, eyes calm, breathing even. He sees what the hit revealed. Who overcommitted? Who's still chasing contact instead of space? This is why he stayed down. Not to draw sympathy, to draw certainty. He calls the snap. The ball hits his hands. And 19 seconds after taking the hit, 19 seconds after everyone thought the game had shifted, Joe Montana is about to do something that will make the defense regret celebrating too early. The defense lines up too fast. That's the first mistake. They rush back into position like a team that wants to finish something quickly, like the hit gave them permission to stop thinking. Helmets snap into place. Hands rest on knees. A linebacker barks out an adjustment that doesn't quite match what the secondary is showing. Joe Montana notices all of it, because staying down wasn't about pain. It was about observation. From the turf, he had watched the defense celebrate, watched who turned away, watched who stayed locked in. He saw which players assumed the moment was over, and which ones were still afraid it wasn't. Those details matter. He steps under center now, calm as ever. No hurry, no spike, no timeout. The clock keeps bleeding and the defense grows louder, more animated, desperate to force urgency back onto him. 0:11. A safety creeps forward, pointing. A corner glances inside, unsure if he's supposed to press or bail. The linebacker who made the hit is breathing hard, chest heaving, still riding the adrenaline of contact. Adrenaline is fast, thinking is slow. Montana wants slow. He claps his hands once, not for the snap, just to test them. A defensive lineman jumps early, catching himself at the last second. Another tell. Montana resets. He doesn't change the play. He doesn't need to. The defense is already changing it for him. They've compressed the field, crowding the middle, daring him to throw quickly. They're protecting against panic routes, slants, drags, anything designed to stop the clock. That leaves one thing vulnerable: the edge. Montana exhales through his nose and bends slightly at the waist, eyes level. The snap comes. The rush is immediate, not controlled, explosive. The same linebacker shoots through the gap again, trying to repeat the moment. A defensive end loops wide, aiming to force Montana off his spot. Montana doesn't retreat. He steps up. Not far, just enough. The pocket collapses behind him, but he's already past it. His feet stay quiet. His shoulders stay square. He waits for the receiver to clear the chaos. The crowd is screaming now, urging him to throw it away, to save the moment, to do something. Montana waits. The receiver breaks late, cutting toward the sideline at the exact depth Montana expected. The corner covering him hesitates. Just a half step, still worried about the middle. That half step is everything. Montana releases the ball. It's sharp, flat, precise. The receiver catches it and turns upfield instinctively, before remembering the clock. He pivots out of bounds as the defender lunges too late. The official's arm goes up. First down. The stadium erupts, not in celebration, but in realization. This isn't over. Montana jogs back toward the huddle, face unchanged. He hears the defense now, confused, arguing, shouting assignments that should have been decided earlier. They're rattled, because the hit didn't break him. It exposed them. The silly. Coaches on the sideline wave frantically, torn between aggression and caution. Montana doesn't look over. He already knows. The defense has lost its balance. They're guarding against what just happened, not what's coming next. In the huddle, brief now, almost ceremonial, no one speaks except Montana. Same tempo, he says. No urgency, no drama. They break. The defense lines up again, this time hesitant. Safeties stay deeper. Corners widen. They're trying to protect against space now, instead of contact. That's the shift. Montana wanted it. He steps under center once more, eyes scanning, breath steady. Enough time. The snap comes. This time the rush is cautious. Hands up. Lanes controlled. They don't want to be fooled again. That caution buys Montana exactly what he needs. A clean throwing lane. He drops back, sets his feet, and fires. The ball whistles toward the end zone, threading between two defenders who arrive a fraction too late. The receiver leaps. Hands meet leather. He comes down hard, back slamming the turf, feet sliding. For a split second, nobody moves. Then the official raises his arms. Touchdown. The stadium explodes. Helmets fly. Coaches sprint. Players collide in disbelief. Joe Montana stands still. He looks toward the end zone, then back at the defense. They're frozen. They know. 19 seconds ago, they thought the game changed when he stayed down. They were wrong. It changed because he got up. The stadium doesn't explode right away. It pauses, as if everyone needs a moment to process what just happened. The ball in the end zone. The official's arms in the air. The scoreboard changing its mind. Then the noise hits. It pours down from the stands in waves. Relief. Disbelief. Shock. Players sprint from the sideline. Coaches collide into embraces they won't remember. Helmets hit the turf. Gloves fly. Joe Montana doesn't move. He stands where he finished the throw, hands resting at his sides, eyes fixed on the end zone. Not celebrating, not searching, just watching. Across the field, the defense is frozen. Some players stare at the turf. Others look toward the sideline, waiting for an explanation that won't come. They all know the truth. The game didn't turn on the touchdown. It turned 19 seconds earlier, when Joe Montana stayed down. In the locker room later, the chaos softens into something quieter. Music hums. Laughter echoes off concrete walls. A television replays the final sequence on loop, the hit shown again and again from different angles. Montana sits at his locker, pads still on, untying his cleats slowly. A towel hangs around his neck. He hasn't looked at the screen once. A teammate finally asks what everyone's been thinking. "Why didn't you get up?" Montana pauses. Not for effect, for accuracy. "They showed me everything," he says. That answer spreads through the room. Some nod. Some laugh. Some don't fully understand. But defenders do, because staying down wasn't weakness. It was control. From the ground, Montana had watched the defense celebrate too early. He'd seen who relaxed, who turned away, who assumed the moment was over. That assumption is poison. Defenses are trained to react, to swarm, to finish. When they believe they've finished, discipline dissolves. Assignments loosen. Aggression replaces patience. Montana waited for that. He didn't rush to prove he was okay. He let them believe he wasn't. That belief changed everything. When he stood up, the defense didn't reset. They panicked. They lined up fast, loud, emotional. They chased urgency instead of structure. That's where the mistake lived. The touchdown itself will make highlight reels. The throw, the catch, the official signal. But players remember the silence before it. The moment Montana stayed down and let the clock keep moving. That silence did more damage than the hit ever could. Years later, a defender from that game would admit something quietly during an interview. "We thought we broke him," he said. "That's when we lost." That's the Joe Montana paradox. He never needed to overpower opponents. He let them overpower themselves. Coaches study this sequence for decades, not because of the route, not because of the coverage, but because it shows something rare. A quarterback who understands time better than force. Montana didn't fear the clock. He weaponized it. 19 seconds is supposed to erase options, to force chaos, to punish hesitation. Montana used it to create clarity. That's why moments like this follow him everywhere. Late games, tight scores, no margin.
Defenses feel it, even before the snap. They know the danger isn't the throw, it's the wait, the moment where nothing happens, and everything shifts. Teammates talk about it years later too, about how the huddle felt different with Montana late in games. He didn't rush us, one receiver says. He slowed us down. That's leadership, not volume, not emotion, presence. Montana never needed speeches. He needed space, to see, to read, to decide. And when the hit came, he took it. When the ground met him, he stayed. And when the moment cracked open, he stood up and finished it. The defense never recovered, because they couldn't. They'd already shown their hand. The game ends. The crowd empties. The stadium lights dim. But the lesson stays. Pressure doesn't defeat you by force. It defeats you by urgency. Joe Montana never surrendered to urgency. That's why 19 seconds later, the defense wasn't shocked by a touchdown. They were shocked by themselves, by how easily they believed the game was over, by how quietly Montana took it back. The clock hit 0, the scoreboard locked, and another entry was written into the long list of moments that define him. Not loud, not dramatic, just inevitable. Joe Montana didn't win because he stayed down. He won because he knew exactly when to get up. And long after the final whistle, after the interviews are clipped into sound bites, and the headlines reduce the moment to a sentence, the truth keeps traveling. It travels into film rooms on Monday mornings, into defensive meetings where coaches pause the tape and rewind not the throw but the hit, the moment Montana stayed down, because that's where the damage began. Defensive coordinators talk about disguises and pressure packages, but what they really talk about is composure. About how quickly control can slip when you assume the moment belongs to you. They warn players about celebrating too early, about letting adrenaline replace awareness, about believing contact equals dominance. Joe Montana made an entire defense pay for that belief. He didn't argue with it, didn't challenge it head on. He let it grow. That's why this moment doesn't age like a highlight. It ages like a lesson. Quarterbacks who come after him study the clip not to learn how to take a hit, but how to manage aftermath, how to understand what a defense reveals when it thinks it has succeeded. Montana understood something most never do. You don't always need to respond immediately. Sometimes the most powerful move is to wait long enough for the other side to expose itself. 19 seconds became proof of that. Proof that toughness isn't always about getting up fast. That leadership isn't always loud. That control doesn't always look heroic. Sometimes it looks like stillness. The hit faded into memory. The touchdown lived on. But the space between them, that quiet stretch where Montana stayed down and the defense lost itself, became part of his legend. Because Joe Montana didn't just win games. He taught them. Taught opponents how fragile certainty can be. Taught teammates what calm actually looks like. Taught the game that pressure doesn't demand speed, it demands understanding. The lights shut off, the field empties, and somewhere between impact and silence, Joe Montana once again reminded everyone watching, the game doesn't belong to the strongest. It belongs to the one who knows when to wait and when to rise.